So this video is going to be looking into an oil cooler for the Mk3. I don't know if I've particularly got an issue, but obviously the oil is going to run a lot hotter because it has to pass through the turbo on this car. So obviously that's heating the engine all the time. So I think it's a good idea to try and get some cooling in. So as you can see on a turbo car, I've got my intercooler, comes to about there and about there. There is a gap on the sides where you can see the horns. So basically I'm going to try and mount and see how I can mount an intercooler at the side. Obviously I could mount it at the bottom in front of the intercooler, but the problem is that's going to obviously block the intercooler, so you're going to have air coming in, the air will be heated as it passes through the oil cooler, and then that hot air would then be passing through the intercooler, which isn't the best. So really you do want them separately. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the front bumper off, which is just bolts along the top, some poppers inside the wheel arching, and some bolts underneath. Get that out and then see what space we've got. So I'm still looking at the oil cooler fitment on my Mk3. So obviously mine's a turbo car, so this is the intercooler off the front, so that hangs down at the front to get the maximum airflow. Obviously I could mount an oil cooler across the bottom, but then I'm blocking part of my intercooler, so I didn't really want to do that. So I took lots of measurements. I took lots of measurements at this side. This intercooler is actually offset slightly at the front of the car, and there's a bigger amount of space here. So I measured the space I had, and this was the this is a Setrab oil cooler. So this I believe is going to be the best fitment I can do. I'll put the details of it down in the video. But basically, I ordered some aluminium. So the intercooler is aluminium. Ordered some aluminium. I've drilled and tapped 2 lugs there, and what I'm going to do is those are going to go there. Going to get that welded up and then put some fittings on the side, but at least it's a good way of securing that on the side. Gets it close to the intercooler where maximum airflow is, because the mouth of the car still should give airflow to that side. So yeah, just about to go and get that welded up with my friend, and we'll go from there. So the last time you saw it, I was getting the lugs welded on the side. They've all been really nicely welded on. Taking this chance to repaint the front intercooler. Looks smart. Remember, if it's aluminium, you need to use etching primer. And then obviously the oil cooler, which we're looking at. So I've got some different bolts on the way, but I've got that sort of just roughly in. I've got these stealth high flow fittings, AN10 into M22. They're just missing this fender here, which is great on the top. So that's looking really smart. So the next thing to do is to obviously try and get the filter housing off. So get the filter housing off, replace it with the new Goal 1, and all the fittings that are going to go with that, and then all the pipe work, and I'll show you as we go along. One of the main parts of this oil cooler setup is replacing the oil filter housing, the whole thing. So on a standard car, there's an aluminium housing, the filter goes on the bottom. There's, on a lot of them, there's a supposedly an oil cooler which runs hot water through the top. Supposedly somehow that cools oil. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know how that works, but that's on the top. So gonna have to, on the coolant system, gonna have to connect, basically take that bit out and connect the pipes normally so they flow and remove the item. I'll show you that. But this is, so what people say is that the aluminium housing is too weak, basically. So a lot of people put, let's say, use this for example, they put a sandwich plate on. So they put a sandwich adapter between the housing, the normal standard housing, a sandwich adapter, and the filter, and then they run lines coming out of the sandwich plate. That's normally all well and good. That's absolutely fine, and some people do it. But there have been some horror stories where basically this housing, the standard aluminium one, isn't strong enough and it cracks. And as soon as you crack it on track or something like that, you lose oil pressure, and that's detonated your engine. So this is a replacement. This is the Goal 1. So this is a billet piece of aluminium, a lot stronger. I didn't buy this brand new. I bought it second hand. So basically, this, you take off the other filter housing. This bolts up with the standard gasket and everything, bolts up, and then it's got your 2 in and out and sensor fittings and a thermostat. So I'm going to run an oil temperature sensor in the top, I'm going to run the standard oil pressure sensor, but on mine I've already got an adapter to then feed my turbo, so I'm going to feed it, continue to feed it off that. So I'm going to leave that the same. The temperature sensor is new, so I'm going to run that to a gauge hopefully, and that will screw in the top there. And then on the front here they're going to be two, they're going to be like this, but these are the wrong ones, but basically they go to AN10. Get some AN10 fittings that are going to go on there, and they're going to go off to the oil cooler at the front. In here is where the thermostat goes. So I tested it, I put this in boiling water and had the thermostat in there, and then this is the return hole, and this, when a thermostat, this piece, when it gets hot, this rod comes out, and basically that pushed, so this was like that, so that's inside blocking oil coming back, and when that expands and that pushes against the stop, it pushes this across and opens up this hole. So it was only opening to about there, and I sent a picture to the guys that make it, and they said no, it looks like it's not opening far enough, so they're going to try and get me the part number to get a new thermostat valve, and then I can put that in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue installing everything, but I'm not going to have put my thermostat in there. So basically what that does is it means you don't overcool your oil. If you're always running straight away your oil from startup all the way through the oil filter, it could be that you're actually running the oil too cool. So what this will do is this will let the engine get up to temperature in its normal way, and it will bypass through here, go through the filter, and just go straight back into the engine without going to the cooler. And then as soon as that reaches a certain temperature, this will open. That will allow the feed, it closes off the loop feed, and it allows the feed to go from to the oil cooler, back in there, and through the filter and out. So it's a nice little addition to have a thermostat there, just to stop it being too cool. So we're going to push on. What I need to do is I've drained the coolant out of the car, because I need to do that bypass of the coolant system, and I need to drain the oil out of the car so I can obviously replace this. So this is a nice bit of kit. I'll put links in the description of the video to the parts that I use. It's not cheap, but it's nice. So, you know, you pay for what you get, don't you? So very quickly, that's a standard gasket. There's only one way it can go around to actually allow feed into these. So that goes around like that. And then standard oil filter. And it's just gonna, nice and neat, exactly in the same position as the original. So looks good. So on a British car, I'm on the passenger side, and there through there is the oil cooler, you can see, and that's the aluminium housing above it. And then let's see, and then there's some tubes there. That bit is the oil cooler heater thingy weirdness that I'm going to replace. So need to get in there and remove all that. So if there's any shaky footage, but it's quite hard to do. So I've got the oil filter off. The oil filter's off down there. Had to take off the cross brace, just gives you better access to the whole thing. And now I'm going to look at unbolting. So through there are 4 bolts that hold that on. So I think they're 8 or 10 mils. I'm going to take those off. So having undone the filter housing, this is a spare one I've got to show you. So this is your filter housing, this aluminium bit here. This is the water cooler on top, and obviously your oil filter. So what you got is obviously these are your coolant lines, and they're joined together by having this cooler. If you're going to take that out, then obviously you need to join these together. So basically you're wanting to join these 2 pipes together, a little bit like that. I have some other pipes I'm going to play with, but basically I ordered a 19mm hose joiner. So let's say this one comes down here and I cut it there. I can put that in there, put a clip on it, and then join that one together to make it a complete U. And obviously that deletes this setup here. So what I'm going to try and do, this is loose in the car at the moment, connected here. I need to get these undone, get this cooler off, and then play around with trying to, you know, join this together. It's really bad placing to do camera work and stuff like that. That's what I'm trying to do, and obviously I'll just show you the end result. So to try and keep you updated with how to do it, so I've got it's the oil cooler that I was trying to get off, and what I worked out is maybe to go the other end, because I can't really get to things down there. So one of the other ends went on top of the thermostat there, so I pinched the clip together there, pulled that out. That's this one. Then, if you look down here, there's this water pipe that comes out of the heater matrix, goes down to there. There's a clip on it. I can't get to the clip, so on the top of the hose, I literally put this on top of the hose, hit it with a hammer a few times and push the hose off, and I'm hoping now both of those are off, I can just pull the oil cooler from underneath. So I've got it out, and then when you actually have the oil cooler out, the water cooler, sorry, the connection looks much simpler. So you've got the connection into the thermostat there, you just need to come out there, along here, and up into the bottom of that junction. So I believe that you could modify this, that's fine, but I have this other water hose that I had from a different engine rebuild, it's from this engine but from a different one, and that looks like it will go into the thermostat. If I come round and then come up with this one, I think that'll work. So I'm going to take the easy option and use this hose. I think you can modify that, it just needs a little bit more work. So I've done the reroute pipe, comes out of the thermostat down there, springs around here. It's got a nice OEM cover on this hose that if it rubs at all, it's protected, and then it kicks up and into the metal pipe here. So that's the reroute all sorted. So just about ready. This is the Goal 1 filter housing. So I've put the AN10 to 3/4 ORB on here. They didn't seem to sit that well with the O-ring that came with the connector, so I've put a slightly bigger O-ring in there. This is a reducer for the temperature sensor. When I can put it in, I'll put it in. The reason I haven't put it in yet is because I need to redo the wiring, so I need to do that. So I've put that in. That is that's a 1/8 sensor into a quarter NPT, so I had to reduce that. This is the original oil pressure. On the original one goes straight into the housing. I've got this adapter piece because I need another takeoff for my own oil pressure sensor and the feed to the turbo, and that is still on the car, so I can't put that on because I believe my thermostat is faulty in here, so I'm waiting for the part number to order another one. So I'll put that on once it's all in the car, so it should be fine. So, going to bolt this up. One little thing I did notice, I was just checking, was I thought, oh, I'll just put the bolts in, and you can see how it doesn't go in slightly. So all the other holes are fine on here, but this one, the bolt doesn't line up. So I've just taken off some meat off the washer side, and now it fits. It's amazing how you just, on the aftermarket parts, you do just need to check little things, because that's not pulling up nicely at all. Cool. So I've got the One Goal oil filter housing all bolted in. Like I said, the top bolts had to be, the washer head had to be trimmed down, otherwise they wouldn't fit. Other than that, it's gone in fine. Now I need to see those AN10 fittings on the top. I've got some 90-degree fittings to go on there. This one further forward should be absolutely fine, but the starter motor is actually quite close to the other one. So let's give that a try and see what's going on. So a 90-degree fast flow fitting like this does not fit on the top. You can't screw it up. You can't get it on the AN thread. The only thing I'm thinking is maybe take out the ORB threaded part here that goes into the filter housing and put it into the AN10 fitting first and then try it. But otherwise I'm going to have to get some kind of a different low level fitting here. So as you can see, on the right hand side is the right angled fast flow that I had previously, that then screwed into an AN10. So this part was a separate connector. This is the Stealth high flow that I've ordered, which doesn't have a separate connector. I've just done AN10 to M25. No, it's not M25, that's ORB 8. And you can see how much shallower it is. So I'm hoping with the depth so much less that I'm not going to have interference with the starter motor anymore. So we now need to do some AN lines. These are the fittings that go into the oil cooler at the front. So I've got AN10 line, and first of all you need to put it into this. So you don't need to have these, but maybe put some soft jaws in, but the AN aluminium vice jaws are really quite good. So push this line into this fitting. You then clamp that into your vice jaws. What's great about these is they have cutouts that are made just for AN, so it's great. And then what you're doing is you're pushing, when you screw this in, that inner part is pushing it going into the hose, and it pushes it out and seals it. Just want to be careful that it doesn't force the hose back out the other end. This one doesn't seem to be moving. There you go, so that's your hose into, so these should still swivel. It doesn't, interesting. Oh, it does. It's very tight. So good. Right, so that's one to go on the cooler. Takes an O-ring on there, put that on the cooler, and then we can work out how long we need the hosing. You can't really see it that well, but I've got the filter housing in for the last time. I've got a new thermostat in there. I've had to get a lower rated one because I couldn't get the other one, but it looks okay. Opens a lot further than the other one, so I'm glad I checked it. My AN fittings are in at the top. So as part of doing the oil cooler, what I want to do is install a oil temperature gauge. In this cluster up here, I've got a boost gauge and oil pressure, and I want the oil temperature to be able to monitor that. So what you can do is you can replace an air vent with another gauge. So we're going to have a look at that. There's some really, so what you can do is I'll show it in more depth, but basically there's an adapter for the dial, for the gauge, and it's done by Update Create. So go on Instagram, they've got MX5 parts, they've got a lot for Mark 1s and a few bits for Mark 3s. So going to have a look at that, show that in more detail. It's a nice little piece. So what you do need to do is get this dash insert out, and it's screwed in from behind. So what you need to do is you need to pop your glove box out, which is you take off the little retaining lead at the side, push the sides in on the plastics, pop it out, and it comes out. I've got an old dash piece. I'd forgotten about these two center ones, and then this shows you where there's some clips. If you don't have that on a carbon one, there'll be a bolt there, those two, and then just a clip. So I think it's really just that one and these two center ones. What you'll need to do is you need to remove this center console, because you need to get behind this piece. So you need to pop this back cover off the console. There's two screws here. One screw in the front section, and then this should lift up. So pull that forward again. Clips in at the front. There you go. Need to get these side bits off. There's two screws. And then there's two screws on the side. Then with a good pull, the whole unit comes forward, and you've got these two screws. And then you've got the one. And then once you've got that screw undone, this screw undone, I'm hoping it all just comes out like that. So we've got the dash that we were looking at before. So now we need to remove this main part. So you need to take the vent out. So that's your two screws either side. That pops your vent out. And then what you've got this moving bit inside, and there's tabs here, one there, well it's four, so 4 tabs. I'm going to imagine these can be quite brittle. So let's see how many we break. Just been really gentle there. Oh. Right, so that's that front piece out. Guessing this will just pull out now, this ball. Yes, it does. So that's been running inside here. Because of how this slots in, you need to cut away some of this excess. So it's just this foam. So you just need to, whatever lines up, cut away 2 of those. So that fits in there now. I'm guessing we put the trim back on. So mine's going to have like a double silver look, which is fine because the other I bought these gauges because of this silver bezel on a lot of things, so you know, it matches pretty well. So does this have a way round? Yes, it does. It looks like it needs, I don't know where that goes. Oh, it just fits in one of those. Okay. So push that back on. That's all clipped in. There's your adapter piece. That looks great. What I'm going to do is I'm not going to put the gauge in just yet because I want it to be set the right way round. So I'm just going to put this back in. It's just a reversal, the removal. So it's just these screws going back in to hold it. So what it's going to look like, so that's it. Looks neat, that's the insert. And then when the gauge goes in, it's going to look something like that. I don't want to push it right in yet because it's a tight fit and I don't want to get it stuck. I also need to set up my gauge. This has multiple different lights and there's instructions on how to set these up to show lights. So these dials, you can get power and you can piggyback it off other dials. So I've already wired these in, getting power from the car. You can see that back in my video on how to install this gauge pod. So what I've done for the gauge that's going to be here is I've just piggybacked off it. The gauge comes with the wire. I have actually lengthened it, but I don't know if you needed to. So I've clicked in there, poked it through here, and then at the back of the stereo, you probably can't see, there's a bit of foam, and it's basically blocking the air, and in the corner, you can push a lead through. I pulled both of them through now, so one is the power lead, and one is the sensor lead, and I'm running them just in the back, the corner, and then the sensor lead's going to go down where my other sensors are, and I'm going to take it through the bonnet latch mechanism, and that should be fine. So that's how I did it. My sensor for the oil temperature is in, and what I've done is it had a fly lead, so I've taken all my sensor leads out of the cable for the bonnet release, so I run them all in there. I ran it across. I've had to extend it, so I've extended it, gone down where my other oil sensor is, gone down the back there with a plug into that sensor. So I've got the car running, my new oil temp gauge is working. I've set it up so it looks the same as the others, so all in keeping. It takes quite a long time to get off zero. I'm going to let the engine warm up. I have done it once already, it warmed up. This is a 71 degree thermostat, so it opens quite quickly because it's the only one I can get hold of at the moment. So I'd forgotten about it, and then it had got to sort of 80-ish, and I checked the lines and it had opened, so the oil was getting to the front cooler, so all was looking good. The new dial is all in, same colours as the originals up top. This is the daylight running mode, so it's just in white, and then it changes to the darker. As soon as you turn the lights on, it turns to the darker shade, which matches quite closely the original dial, so I think it looks really good.